Welcome back to the Pump Take Sports Show. Today we are going to be doing a Sunday recap of some of the best games from Week 12. We're going to be starting off with a little bit of an AFC South rivalry here, Titans-Colts game, which I think you would agree with me, Kale, was probably one of the better games of the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. It was one of the better games of the weekend, mainly just because it was the only one that we had on Sunday with any actual real standing implications. Like we're going to talk about games like Saints Broncos later, which didn't really mean anything, and then the Packers were going to beat the Bears. So this one was like a really nice, meaningful, and entertaining game to have on Sunday.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Some things about the Titans here. The Titans are actually back-to-back road wins, which is pretty impressive to put them at the top of the AFC South. Obviously, this game here against the Colts had some massive divisional implications. And I've got some things written down here about the Titans that maybe kind of give an insight to why the Titans are doing so well recently and this season as a whole. The first being that of the 14 current NFL playoff teams, the Titans actually have the highest strength of victory, which is kind of an impressive stat that they're beating teams with the highest actual win-loss record on average, which is impressive for the Titans. Also, as of the first day of December, which is today, as we're recording this, Ryan Tannehill is currently tied for 7th in TD passes, tied for third fewest interceptions, 5th in QBR, 6th in passer rating, and 8th in yards per attempt. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive for Ryan Tannehill, who last year was kind of just a plug and play QB that kind of allowed their playmakers to do what they needed to do. But I mean, as you can see there from these numbers, Tannehill has been playing incredibly well this season, which clearly just elevates the Titans even more. He's actually projected to finish with a 33-6 touchdown to interception ratio, which, you know, that's nothing to run home about, but that's still a pretty good number for Ryan Tannehill and the Titans offense. So, I mean, obviously Derrick Henry, as we were both watching, had a pretty insane game. We were thinking, oh man, like he might break the fantasy record here when he already had 3 touchdowns in the first half?
Yeah, I think he had 3 and 140 yards or something on 17 carries. It was insane.
Yeah, which wasn't even the most impressive fantasy performance of the day, which is crazy. But Derrick Henry right now, he has 1,257 rushing yards, and that is more rushing yards than 20 entire NFL teams do this season, which is ridiculous. Clearly playing up to the money that they paid him. And interestingly enough, in this matchup with the Colts and the Titans, the Colts have only given up 100-plus rushing yards to a single player 3 times over the last 3 seasons. And those players are Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry. And that just goes to show, I mean, we've talked before about the Colts and just about how good their defense is and how hard hitting and young and kind of motivated it is to get back into the backfield. But clearly Derrick Henry doesn't have any of that. And I guess neither does that Titans offensive line, because he's ran over them 3 times in a row.
Yeah, a big thing with the dominance of Derrick Henry, especially on Sunday, is that the absence of DeForest Buckner really made the Indianapolis run defense a lot worse. Like Henry was really able to just pound through that defensive front pretty easily, which we saw in the first big run that he broke off for that touchdown. So that was a big absence for the Colts that I think helped Henry dominate that game well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing, kind of, I guess, to wrap up, not about the whole game, but just about the Titans kind of in general, is that I think you would agree that the Titans are no longer kind of just that fluky giant killer that they were last year. The Titans, I think, can do some serious damage in the playoffs this year. I mean, clearly they're leading their division, but with the strongest strength of schedule and the way that strength of victory and the way that Tannehill's been playing lately, and Henry and AJ Brown and kind of that whole team, you can tell there's something kind of brewing down in Tennessee, and I could see them doing some big stuff this year in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think they've shown just the way that they've came into this season, and they just play every single team that they play just so hard and just so competitively that we can definitely see that last year in the playoffs wasn't a fluke. That's just what the Tennessee Titans are. They're a team that's going to come out, they're going to hit you hard, they're going to run the ball, and they're just going to play a hard football game against you. And I think you're completely right. I think they could be a great team in the playoffs. Although I'm still iffy. Like, this game obviously was a big indicator in who's going to win that division, but I still think that the Colts could potentially take this division, just given how the rest of the season plays out. Because I think the Colts are an excellent team as well.
Yeah, they are. They are an excellent team, and it's interesting that you bring it up, because I actually have something here just about Phillip Rivers that I pulled up last night. Phillip Rivers, over the last 5 games, he's kind of hitting a rhythm at a perfect time in the season for the Colts. He's 67% completion percentage. He's thrown 10 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions over the last 5 games, and they're 4-1 over the last 5 games. And clearly, this is a loss against a tough, Tennessee team, but they beat the Packers last week. And that's nothing to just kind of roll over. I mean, the Packers were at one point the number 1 NFC team in the league. So, this Colts team is scary. The Titans just had the offensive prowess that the Colts, I think, were lacking in that game. And the Titans defense could just kind of slow up that Colts offense. Of course, the Colts defense is full of good football players, but the Titans offense showed that it also is good football players. But yeah, I mean, one game, this is a little unrelated to this game, but as I was just saying, the Colts beat the Packers. The Titans play the Packers in a couple weeks. And if they win that game, I think they've got the division for sure. Because I've looked at the Titans schedule, and that's their toughest game coming up. So, I mean, that kind of a must-win, not a must-win game for the Titans, but would definitely be nice to win, especially when the Colts just beat the Packers. So that's one to look out for on the schedule. We'll definitely be talking about that on the show. But I think with that, we can move to maybe a much less serious game, definitely a much less serious game, but a fun one in New Orleans versus the Broncos.
Oh my God. That game was just like, I personally, I feel like that game shouldn't have even happened with the situation that the Broncos were in. Like, especially with how the NFL has now pushed the Ravens game back 3 times because of COVID. It's not fair to send the Broncos out there without a quarterback. As funny as seeing Kendall Hinton out there trying to throw the ball 9 times and making 1 reception was. Yeah. It's that game is it's almost an illegitimate win for the Saints, and I don't love that game wasn't pushed back, just given the situation.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, it kind of shows a little bit of favoritism isn't the right word, but that's the word that I'll use because it came to my mind. It kind of shows just a little bit of favoritism to the teams that are kind of your marquee teams in the league, right? The Steelers-Ravens game, of course, is a massive game, and everyone wants to watch it, and you want the players to be healthy for it, given that people are going to tune in. But the Broncos didn't even have a goddamn starting quarterback, for God's sakes. Some things I have here about Kendall Hinton. Yeah, Kendall Hinton, which are just kind of funny, and I'm sure you've maybe seen these, but it's worth just saying. Kendall Hinton was working a sales job last month and started at quarterback for the Denver Broncos on Sunday. Kendall Hinton hasn't been tackled in 2 years, and he started for the Denver Broncos on Sunday. And lastly, Kendall Hinton took 0 practice reps at QB leading up to his start on Sunday.
Because the NFL told the Broncos Saturday night for a game on Sunday that none of your quarterbacks are allowed to play.
Yeah, which is completely unfair. And one thing I was thinking to myself, you would think. Now, I'm not saying, no disrespect to Kendall Hinton. He played fine for what he was asked to do.
Oh, yeah.
But that being said, is there no one else? I was thinking, if I'm the Denver Broncos, or I don't even know who made the decision. The GM, the coach, I don't know who made that decision. But
well, weren't they trying to put their offensive coach or whatever, not their offensive coordinator, but some other guy behind the scenes,
control coach or something.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what was there no one that could throw the ball? We've seen in other offenses in a super small scale, of course, Odell Beckham has thrown touchdowns to Baker and Landry and stuff like that. And it's the same thing when, he played for the Giants. He threw in a Saquon at one point. But, is there no one that can throw the ball that you've seen in practice that, maybe it's a I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I'm not inside the
Yeah.
Broncos camp, but still, like this seemed as much as it was like a desperation choice, still seemed a little weird considering this guy was like a practice squad player for 2 years leading up to this day. But that being said, obviously not much to say about this one. It was like a New Orleans blowout. I would say that in the future, if any game happens like this again, where, kind of a lower tier team is playing against a good team and the NFL doesn't flex it when their quarterbacks have COVID, bet everything you've got on the team
Oh
that's
yeah.
playing against that team, because like I put some money on New Orleans and it was just the freest money that I've ever made. Like Kendall Hilton, as much as he played fine for what he was asked to do, he wasn't going to move the ball anywhere. So
No chance. Yeah.
yeah, that one was just, we wanted to touch on it because it was kind of a funny thing. I've never seen that in all my years of being a fan. I've never seen them roll out a receiver at QB for a full game. So, I mean, with that, I think we can move to America's Game of the Week, which was the Buccaneers versus the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, that game. Like I was in the first half of that game was just absolutely just blown away by what Patrick Mahomes can do with the football. Like you were sitting there with me and like we were just both looking at each other and just like complete just shock of how he can move the ball down the field under so much pressure. It seems like the play is breaking down and he can just extend the play so well that like Tyreek's eventually going to get open, and that's what we saw with Tyreek. Like he almost broke the Chiefs receiving yards
Yeah,
record for a single game.
I mean, I've got notes about every game here, and the only notes I made for this game were Mahomes and Tyreek, because really that's all. Like, I mean, of course the Bucks. You could talk about the Bucks, and they did have an okay game, I guess. I mean, Brady hit on some of his deep balls that he wasn't really hitting on earlier in the season. But that being said, like as soon as that first half was done, Tampa Bay would have had to have the best 2 quarters of football they've had all season to come back against that Kansas City offense. Tyreek Hill's career day, he broke the fantasy record for this season, and I'd have to fact check, but probably last season as well. When Mahomes and him are on the same page, like it's something that is incredibly hard to stop for NFL defenses. And as we were talking about when it was happening, if Tyreek is having a game like that, they usually double him. And then he kind of slows down in the second half. But when that happens, then Kelsey eats under the bottom. And like you still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who he had a disappointing game, but you can still hand him the ball in most situations, given both your guys are double covered. And they have other receivers too. Like Patrick Mahomes is unbelievable. As much as I would love Rodgers to be the MVP, he isn't. Mahomes is the MVP right now. But I mean, they genuinely in that first half of football, that was probably the best. It was the most just pound, like they were just dominating the Buccaneers in the first half more than I've seen any team dominate a team this season.
Yeah, and like that being said, like credit to the Buccaneers, like they really tightened up their defensive scheme in the second half and kind of stopped giving Tyreek Hill those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
But like by the time you give Tyreek Hill like over like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns just because you're playing him exclusively in man coverage for some reason, like it's already too little too late.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
You have to just make such a comeback against such a potent offense that it's like your chances are looking very slim. And like you said before, as soon as you move Tyreek Hill into double coverage, the Chiefs have so many other weapons on their team that they can just hurt you in other ways.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Buccaneers really, if they wanted to win that game, they had to not let the Chiefs do what they did in that first half. Like that, it's as simple as that. You needed to come out with the game plan to double Tyreek instead of adjusting mid-game. But impressive win for the Chiefs. Like the Buccaneers are not a team to just kind of, this isn't something you just glaze over in the schedule. Like the Buccaneers are a pretty good football team. So for the Chiefs to win this game, like this was one of their tougher games in the last part of their schedule. And so the Chiefs are definitely looking good for the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely.
The next game was the Sunday night football game, the Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears. So with this win, now bear with me here. I've got some notes on this one, but bear with me. With this win, my Green Bay Packers take a 3-game lead in the NFC North with only 5 games to go, which is very exciting because last to start the season, like we started the season 5-0. I was thinking, yes, we've got the North, and then we came out like we talked about last week, 3-3 since the bye, and then to take this game against the Bears on Sunday night, it's a 3-game lead in the NFC North with only 5 games to go. And looking at our schedule ahead, we do have 2 tough matchups, but it won't be too bad looking ahead. And so I really think that the Packers will win the NFC North. But this was a must. Of course, the Bears aren't, a premier great team. People thought they were at the beginning of the season, but they really weren't. And so, yeah, the Green Bay Packers probably going to win the NFC North, taking down their rival here tonight or the other night on Sunday Night Football. So some notes here that I've got. Mitchell Trubisky played bad in this game, but it wasn't entirely his fault. The Bears defense let us score on essentially every single drive. And the offense for Green Bay, I think this was the smoothest and most efficient it looked all season. There have been times where we've scored, close to as many points, but sometimes those come on like MVS bombs or like, Devontae Adams 200-yard games. This was probably the most efficient our offense looked as a whole unit. As I say here, it's probably the most robotic and effective way I've seen our offense play all season. Another thing, I love how Kevin King played specifically in this game. He was tackling more aggressively. He was playing tighter man coverage. He broke up a pass in the end zone. Kevin King, it's great to have him back from injury. He played amazing. The other guy I want to highlight here is Bob Tonyan. I loved how he's been playing just generally. I jokingly said to Kale while we were watching this game, he's turning into our Kittle light because the way he's been playing this season has genuinely looked like a Kittle light. Interesting statistics. Packers QB Aaron Rodgers has 152.8 passer rating when targeting Bob Tonyan this season. He is 37 for 41 when targeting him with 458 yards, 7 touchdowns, and no interceptions with targeting him. And Tonyan is at a 90% catch percentage with 11.2 yards per target, which, obviously those are very impressive numbers. And he just continues to develop. And I watch his post-game stuff, and he talks about how he's so eager and excited to be a bigger part of this offense. And as a Green Bay fan, and as Green Bay fans should be, that's incredibly exciting to have a new tight end in there to kind of just like open up the offense completely. It's a really great thing. And the Packers unfortunately did lose Corey Linsley for 3 weeks with a sprained MCL at the beginning of this game. But we do have Elton Jenkins, and this guy can slot over. They were showing the graphic on Sunday Night Football. He can slot anywhere on the offensive line, which is so valuable for Matt LaFleur to have because if he wants to make any rotational changes moving forward, he can because he can slot in kind of anywhere on the offensive line, maybe not as effectively at the tackle position, but we're losing our starting center for 3 weeks. And so to slot in this guy and put him in there, it's excellent. And the last thing that I want to say, sorry, excuse my rant, but the last thing that I want to say is the Packers signed Tavon Austin this morning, and I am fired up about this signing. Tavon Austin, when he played for the Rams, was an absolute burner. So I hope that he can, bring some speed and firepower back into this offense. And the one thing I hope this doesn't indicate that Swerve Irvin is going to miss any time, but if it does, we've kind of plugged that hole. And if it doesn't, we have a real kick returner now, like an actual real kick returner. And I could see Tavon Austin getting some snaps on, like in our offense too, being involved in that way, probably some jet sweeps and stuff like that. I encourage anyone to go watch Tavon Austin's Rams kick return highlights. This guy is fast as hell. Like he doesn't have Tyreek speed, but it's close. So very exciting about that. Sorry about my rant. Do you have anything to add about the Packers game, Kale?
Not really, other than to just agree with a lot of the things you said. Like coming in as somebody who like I don't follow the Packers, and I'm not like I wasn't overly familiar with Tonyan as a player before, but seeing how he played on Sunday night against the Bears, I was really impressed. He seems like he's developing into a player who's more than a guy who's just going to block for you on your offensive line. He was able to run routes extremely well, get downfield, go up, catch contested balls, and just everything you want from just a tight end who's going to be a diverse weapon in your offense. So
exactly.
I thought that was really well.
Yeah, and when Green Bay, sorry, go ahead.
And just also on top of that, like I thought this was one of the better games that I've seen Aaron Rodgers play all season. He was 21 for 29. He only had 211 yards, but he had 4 touchdowns. Like Aaron Rodgers in that game, he just seemed like he was able to just like move the ball down the field just so effortlessly, and it was one of the more impressive games that I've seen him play all season.
Yeah, and you could tell, like, as I was saying earlier, the offense, Aaron absolutely was having just so much fun out there. Like, you could see him when the camera would pan. And also, I was also saying this to you, Green Bay games are a little bit weird because there's no crowd noise. So normally for a Sunday Night Football game, it's loud, but it's like pretty quiet. And it's just like the commentators talking. So it's fun because you see Aaron kind of just like talking to the ref, kind of like giving him a little smile, giving like his offense a smile. You see him pointing down the field. You see him when he's pissed too, but that, like, this is probably the most, as I was saying earlier, just robotic in a sense that the Green Bay offense looked, because we were moving the ball down the field. The running game was great. I should have mentioned Aaron Jones too, because he played great. He was getting like, I don't know the number, but it seemed like he was getting like 7 or 8 yards of a carry in that game. Like, he was absolutely feasting in that game. And our offense was moving so well, and Aaron was having fun, and just a great win for the Pack. I'm so fired up. Going for the top of the North, and yeah, it was just, I was fired up on a Sunday night to kind of get that blowout win against the Bears. And it wasn't Trubisky's fault, so don't take that out of this. I hope I highlighted more of what the Packers did well than what the Bears did bad, because that's kind of the moral of the whole thing.
And the Bears, like, just one last thing to end on. It's like, it's your division to lose at this point. Like, the Bears lately have been sliding so bad. Like, what are they, like 1 in like 5 or something in their last 6 or something along those lines?
Yeah, something
like
that.
The Bears have not been playing well. And I don't know if you saw this. It even got to the point where, like, Matt Nagy in his like post-game press conference, he was like calling out the effort of the defense and like saying that guys weren't trying. So the Bears are just a mess at this point.
Yeah, they're a mess. And about the Nagy thing, like, I get what Nagy's trying to do with that, but that's not going to motivate that kind of a defense, in my opinion. No. Like, that kind of a defense is going to hear that, and they're going to be like, well, how's your offense playing there, Nagy? Like, how's your play calling really doing? Like, the Bears defense was the only thing really working well for them when they were doing well earlier this season. Of course, like, BDN had his plays here and there, but like, also losing Akeem Hicks is a massive loss for the Bears. And for Nagy to just like steamroll over that and just be like, you guys weren't trying hard enough. Good luck, Nagy. Like, you've just lost your locker room in a team where you need to have your locker room. So
you already lost it.
Yeah, the Bears are stupid. But just like one last little piece of general news, and this is something that we will talk about on another football show for sure, because Aiden, who sometimes is on here on the football show, but he isn't today, his New York Football Giants took the NFC East, which is pretty cool. To say the least, to think that the Giants could, like, I if you listen to us, you know, Kale said the Eagles and I said the football team were going to win the NFC East, but, you know, part of us just wants to see the Giants win it for our friend. It'd be cool to see a playoff game in MetLife. That'd be kind of fun, but I'm sure Aiden will be on here to share his thoughts about that soon.
Yeah, like, although the Giants are sitting at the top of the division currently, I have a hard time seeing them take this division with Daniel Jones being out for, what is it, like 3 weeks now?
Yeah.
Colt McCoy, he stepped in and he preserved the win, but he was really shaky in that Bengals game, and he didn't look like he's like, well, obviously, because like, you don't expect Colt McCoy to step in and be like,
yeah, no, you don't,
the like catalyst of your offense. But I just think that like there's some other teams in that division right now, the footballers specifically, that are kind of finding a little bit of momentum. And I think, although the Giants are sitting at the top right now, it's going to be tough for them to take this division.
Yeah, I completely agree. I picked the footballers last week to win it, but worth reporting on right now that currently Aiden's New York Giants are sitting at the top of the NFC East. And with that, thank you very much for listening to this video. You know, we'll be doing more Sunday recaps. Check out our NFL stuff, our NBA stuff. I guess we have kind of like a small OKC following now, because our OKC video has been doing pretty good. So maybe if you want to hear us talk about that, click on that. But yeah, we'll be back. Thanks for listening, and you rock. See ya.
See you guys.